Hi, I am Laura DePeters. I'm the Managing Director of Social, Paid Media, and Content at the American Cancer Society. Unfortunately, if I'm recording this, I think I did not make it to Dublin for whatever reason, but hopefully no one ever sees this. So I'm super excited to be presenting to you guys today the TikTok takeover. It might be a little bit of a reprieve from talking heavily about Facebook fundraising and more about content and influencers and our strategy there at the ACS. A little bit about my background. I am kind of all over the place in terms of nonprofit, for-profit, B2B, but have always been pretty heavily focused in social media for the last nearly 15 years. And I came to ACS in more of a content and fundraising capacity, and we've really grown into all things social, including paid media. Which also is exciting because it encompasses more traditional media, digital display, and all of that. So it's been nice to see how everything works together. And a little bit about the American Cancer Society. We're a very large nonprofit in the U.S. that focuses on curing cancer and fundraising for research across all different types of cancer. One of the only nonprofits that is at scale working to reduce cancer mortality rates through largely through research. And it's for all types of cancer versus being focused on just one. We also have various patient services, which are at different scales right now because of the pandemic, but various patient services from getting a free ride to your chemotherapy treatment to being able to call a 24/7 helpline and help navigate your cancer treatment, questions about insurance, anything that someone newly diagnosed or a caregiver might have. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully everything stays recording. And take you to the presentation. So let's dive into a little bit of the background of what is TikTok. And not so much from a consumer standpoint, but from a media standpoint and a business standpoint and how people are using it. And then a little bit about ACS and how we got onto the platform. So the evolution of TikTok, TikTok kind of shot to its peak in terms of acceleration of users on the platform in 2020 during the beginning to middle of the pandemic. And at that time, it overtook all individual channels as far as monthly users and time spent on social media platform, active monthly users, that is. And it's really expected to maintain that lead. In 2021 is when it officially surpassed Instagram in terms of those monthly active users. And what's interesting about TikTok is this chart on the left is really that time spent on the social media platform. It's brought a bit of a reemergence of longer form content and certainly sound on environment. What we've been seeing in trends with video and social platforms the last 5 to 6 years is sound off. If something doesn't pique your interest, within a second, you move on, heavily reliant on transcripts, and really those like short 7-ish second videos, if anyone remembers Vine from back in the day, that kind of created that real like quick ephemeral content. TikTok has brought it back a little bit, and I don't really think we've seen anything like this since the height of YouTube, where you're spending more time in a single browsing session on the platform than any other social channel right now. So you'll see it's dipping a little bit because, people were a little bit more bored during the height of the pandemic in 2020, but still significantly more time spent day to day on the platform than anything else, especially if you look at something like Instagram. People are really staying on the platform longer than they are for any other channel. So for us at the American Cancer Society, why does all this information around TikTok matter? So let's look at the average donor and supporter at ACS. It's usually around women who are 50 or older. What's great about TikTok that I showed on the last slide is over 70% of the demographic is millennial and younger. So we're able to reach that under 40 demo in a way that we're just not able to on any of our other channels. It also allows us to start building that trust and transparency around the mission with that younger demographic. Secondly, we have a lot to say. Cancer is something super complex to talk about, and what we do at ACS is also complex and nuanced. To try to talk about innovations in cancer research and screening, it doesn't take 7 seconds, right? So the longer form format is really great for us as storytellers. Also, we have stories that are best told by video. Again, the complexity, the emotion that goes into talking about cancer. Video is really great for American Cancer Society. Cancer affects everyone, right? Like, even if the average age on TikTok is, 20 years old, and that's someone who's technically less likely to have cancer, ultimately, it would be very difficult to find someone who had not been impacted by cancer, whether it was a relative or being a caregiver or knowing someone that had cancer. So it's something super relatable to the masses. It has on-platform donation capabilities, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but obviously that's a huge check for us in terms of capacity. The ability to leverage influencers. So what's interesting about TikTok is it kind of flipped the influencer game on its head, right? You have people on this channel that have just massive amounts of followers, and they've gained them within a very short period of time. And people like on Instagram took a really long time to build up that type of following. You also have people on TikTok that have followers that, are exceeding what celebrities have on a channel like Instagram. I also think what's interesting about TikTok is influencers are really on something like Instagram. It's a lot about monetizing content. In TikTok, it's just completely different. You really have to just be creative and interesting and put yourself out there. And those are the people who are doing really well. So it positions an organization like American Cancer Society to align ourselves with people who would not already be seeing our message on a platform like Facebook. They're not going to be super active there. So we can build trust through third-party storytelling. And then lastly, an algorithm that prioritizes content over followers. I think that this is really important because it's such a new platform. Gone are the days, they never had those days, right, of like paying for followers and subscribers and feeling like the only thing people cared about was followers. What's great about this is everyone's kind of starting fresh from a same slate, right? You're not trying to like catch up to someone who's had a Twitter account for 12 years. And the algorithm doesn't really prioritize followers at all. If you've spent any time on TikTok, you'll know that it has a very strong algorithm that prioritizes the type of content you might like and you have interacted with over who you're following. So early adoption. ACS got on TikTok in July of 2020, so there certainly weren't a lot of businesses and definitely not nonprofits on the channel at that time. And why? I mean, we were lucky to have leadership that just believed in kind of this fail forward mentality and striking while the iron's hot and not playing catch up. And during the pandemic, we also had a lot to say about how COVID was impacting people with cancer and people who might have cancer in the future. And so it was kind of an opportunity to join a conversation that was larger than we are. We were the first cancer nonprofit to receive a donation sticker in August, so just after we joined, and we obviously have been working with TikTok prior to that, so we knew that we were going to be getting the donation sticker. And at that point, they had really started donations on the channel for social justice issues, especially, in 2020, and that was very prevalent in the US, and COVID, of course. And then so we were kind of one of the first nonprofits not within one of those arenas. And then shortly after that, we launched our first fundraiser in partnership with NFL, so our big American Football League. And that was in September of 2020, and we had a whole live stream takeover We capitalized off of our hashtag Crucial Catch, which is already the name of the program, and got creative as far as like challenging people to show us what's your hashtag Crucial Catch, which was, like how you might catch the ball and do your end zone type dance. So we were lucky to be able to work with TikTok directly, who helped us with some pro bono placement. You can see here on the Discover feed. We received placement that actually got us in the billion views. So we had over 1.5 billion views of that hashtag, and got tons of submissions and tags of people doing the content. And we received a whopping $4,000 in donations, which, now we kind of look back on that and laugh a little bit, because I think if we did something at this scale now, it would be a lot different. But at that point, it just was like such new functionality. Yeah, we had like really great voices and players and coaches who donated their time. We used honestly tons of B-roll to fill time on a live that was pre-recorded and to help create content. So it was a super collaborative effort. And again, I think one of the powers of TikTok is that need that you should not be talking to yourself, and you should not be speaking in a vacuum, but you should be leveraging partners and other content creators. And that campaign specifically is one of the ways that we built up a following really early on. So what are we doing on TikTok, right? How are we treating it different than other channels? What on earth are we going to say to a bunch of people who are dancing around and making silly videos about cancer? And that's something that's so heavy. So we'll dive into platform differentiation and then the power of that earned conversation. So let's take a look at the same message two different ways. This right here is an example of something that you would see on our Facebook page. This was last year's Men's Health Week, which coincides with Father's Day. And, all of the photography and creative had this photo treatment and kind of block text. And that is obviously not something that we could put on TikTok. One, like, literally it's not a video, so we couldn't put it on TikTok. But also, say we got this guy to talk about men's health, it's going to be a lot harder to reach a demographic, right? Facebook was us talking to men who were of a screening age. TikTok was us talking to a younger demographic who could potentially influence loved ones to make decisions to get screened. So again, you can't only talk at people and hope that they're on the platform. You really need to look at meeting people where they are. So you'll see how those are obviously two extremely different pieces of creative that are honestly saying the same thing. They're talking about the need to get back to regular screening during and after the pandemic, and also why men would need to be screened for various things. If we had taken the approach of just hoping that we posted this type of content on TikTok, this type of content right here, and we're speaking to men of a screening age, right? Like the first slide showed you, especially this was a year ago, that 50 plus audience is not on TikTok. So we've completely fallen on deaf ears. So we took the approach of using native TikTok users to talk about why their loved one should get screened, and use this hashtag protect your parents. So the other thing with TikTok is relevance, right? We're a pretty serious brand. We actually don't really ever lean into humor whatsoever. We speak from a very authoritative, but also emotional voice. So, we're not going to be an organization that's being self-deprecating or, making viral dance videos on TikTok. But how do we still remain relevant? if we had come onto TikTok or, other social channels, but certainly TikTok with that kind of younger demographic, and in 2020 and 2021, when things are just like really coming to a head with COVID and with political issues in the United States and social justice issues, no one would have cared or wanted to listen to information about cancer. So how do we make it relevant? This was really an opportunity for us to lean into some of our messaging and programs around health equity, and to align with our Black content creators and audience, and put this in front of them that, some of these issues as it related to equity, were impacting health as well. So this is where we use content creators. So again, instead of like us talking to people from our own channel and hoping we reach them, and TikTok's hopefully a little bit different, but from what we know about our demographic at American Cancer Society in general, we are largely skewing white. So it wouldn't really make sense for us to just do a ton of owned content attempting to speak to the African American community. So we worked with a bunch of creators to get content out there about Black History Month and about health disparities and inequity going on, and what the American Cancer Society is doing. And this video in particular got 17,500 views and over 4,500 engagements, like nothing we could have ever done on our own. And the campaign in general across the board had millions and millions of views and hundreds of thousands of engagements. It also helped us earn credibility and, again, reach that right audience. And I think the credibility piece is big, right? Like, who are we to be talking about some of these issues? We need to trust sort of the experts and people who already have trust in a following. So I'll show you this video here. So that was just one example. This whole campaign was really great. We were able to work with some incredible content creators. And when we work with creators on TikTok and Instagram as well, we don't really script them, right? That's the whole power of working with content creators, is they know what works well on their channel. And especially on TikTok, they're just super creative individuals. So we provide them with a brief and talking points and kind of guardrails, but ultimately we're not trying to tell them how they should be doing their content, and it all ends up looking different, but having that cohesive message throughout. So don't know how big she is in the UK, but Addison Rae is super famous TikTok influencer that, she gained her popularity on TikTok in 2020. Just, average girl, like I mentioned. TikTok completely flipped the influencer game and kind of built a very quick following overnight. Again, dancing and that type of thing. But, has gone on to like be in a Netflix movie, right? So mega famous and influential, and has a bit of a cult following. So again, this is another example of something that we did with the NFL. So we do a Super Bowl sweepstakes program with them every year, in which you make a donation to the American Cancer Society, and you can be eligible to win a trip to the Super Bowl. And there's always been this like celebrity component. So this year, to reach a younger audience, we worked with Addison Rae, and we had her post content across her Instagram and her TikTok, and her elicit the donations for us. So the campaign had over 20 million views, and that was just on TikTok. On one video she posted had 20 million views. Not quite sure what it was on Instagram, where she posted a little bit more, but yeah, 20 million views on TikTok. We literally could not pay for that. If we did, it would cost a lot of money. And she raised over $110,000. Not a huge sum of money, but our goal was $100,000, so we did surpass that. It allowed us to reach this younger emerging demo, so much so that a lot of the comments we were seeing on her TikTok was like, I don't have a credit card, I'll ask my parents. But ultimately, again, we know that these people are the future donors, the future cancer survivors. There was a lot of media pickup, so a lot of buzz and PR efforts went into this partnership. We ended up getting some added value, like in-kind support through American Eagle, who works with Addison Rae, and they saw the campaign and they had done a couple things with ACS before, and they kicked in money and did a little bit of a match campaign to bring in last-minute donations. And then we got some in-kind virality from them as well. And then also we received some in-kind Discover placement from TikTok once they found out we were working with their bread and butter. So again, she's crazy famous. She has over I think close to 90 million followers on TikTok and about 40 million followers on Instagram, which is celebrity status. And what's interesting is actually, I would have to look at the numbers, but she raised quadruple the amount on Instagram than she did on TikTok. And I just think that's kind of an interesting point of, even though she had double the amount of followers on TikTok is still skewing pretty young. And even though their donation capabilities are kind of on par with what Instagram's are, it's probably more of a visibility and the demo issue. All right, so now we're going to get into a little bit of the donation. So actually, yeah, our goal was, I guess, $500,000, which I think was a little bit of a made-up goal, and we ended up raising $110,000. So let's talk about reaching the future donors, who they are, and what's going on with on-platform giving. So our approach to TikTok has never been to be like the cash cow that we're kind of seeing from a platform like Facebook, but it's really about investing our time and media costs and potentially influencer costs into what could be the lifetime value of potential donors. Not just that, obviously we want to get in front of people who are going to have cancer in the future, become caregivers and survivors. It's important for us to be top of mind with them as well, but also we are looking at this from a donation standpoint as well. So if you look at this, it's pretty interesting, right? Because if we look at Gen Z and millennial, who are under the 40 demographic, we don't count people who are under the age of 18. The audience size is, very substantial, and it's similar to what we have with Gen X and Boomers. And again, that's because we're only counting half of Gen Z here. And their giving trends are obviously very different. So millennial, you get a pretty big boost here because now millennials are in the age where they have a little bit more, flexible income and money. But Gen Z is still a lot younger. You have some young professionals there, but it's largely students. Percentage generation that gives, obviously it goes up with time, the more money you have. But if we got in front of this demographic now, and these people that are giving us, on average $49 now, once this percentage goes from 9% to 16% to 21%, right? We've already established that trust with them. When they want to start a fundraiser or when they're feeling charitable, we want to already be there at top of their mind versus trying to play catch up when they're in that Gen X Boomers range. So that's really been that investment there, is that lifetime value of, is Gen Z and millennials going to be keeping the lights on at ACS in terms of donations? no, not now, but we're really thinking long-term, 10, 15 years from now, that's substantial money. So yeah, you can kind of see here, like the sum of contribution over time and what that generational giving is. So this is just kind of a sample of what we're seeing on TikTok. Again, I can't speak for what other people might be seeing, but we've been at the Facebook fundraising game for quite a while now, so it's certainly not apples to apples comparisons. But on average, what we're seeing per donation transaction per month on TikTok is like a $17 donation compared to Facebook, which is about $39. We're also getting around 350 monthly transactions on TikTok and close to 60,000 on Facebook. So again, TikTok's not, footing any bills here for us, but ultimately we want to be in early. We want to be early adopters. So if and when TikTok does become at the caliber that something like Facebook fundraising is, we're already there. We already have the trust, and we were kind of first, which was the approach we had on Facebook like 5 or 6 years ago. So as far as what's next, I would say TikTok is absolutely our most evolving platform in terms of like what we're trying and doing. Incorporating TikTok into our virtual challenge program. So we're not going to try to bring people from TikTok into a Facebook group. Like we've tried that with Instagram and it just does not work. But can we use these powerful voices, especially people who have a tie to cancer, who are maybe in that like fitness type industry? Can we use them to be like team captains and promote the challenge and have it become something that lives outside of even Facebook? Using creator takeovers. So we've done just so much earned media with creators, and that content kind of stays on their TikTok account. Let's also allow them, once we establish a relationship with those creators, to come do a bit of a takeover on our account. And then more TikTok lives for fundraising. We have our annual giving day coming up this summer, and we're going to make it a day full of live streaming and social media takeovers and activations, where we'll have like people pop in and out of lives. So TikTok is definitely going to be big there. Anytime we have done a live on TikTok, it generates significantly more money in a short period of time, just because of that need for to do something immediate than when it's like stretched out over an in-feed piece of content. All right, and now we will take questions. Maybe I'm coming to you live from Skype. I don't really know. But thank you for tuning in.